Hello and welcome back. This is Dr. Scott Schur. I'm going to take you on a journey again today. This one's about dopamine, grief, and the loss of the future. This one hits home for a lot of people, including me. And I just want to start off with, you're not lazy, you're not unmotivated, and you're not broken. But nothing seems to pull you forward anymore. Do you have that feeling sometimes? Things tend to feel flat. They never used to feel that way. Goals feel distant. Even rest doesn't feel restorative. And the harder you try to get motivated, the worse it feels. So today we're going to talk about this. We're going to talk about it in the context of dopamine, which is the reward neurotransmitter that all of you have heard about. But in the setting of grief and loss, man, this can get really wonky really quickly. So first of all, we're going to reframe what dopamine actually does. That's really going to be important. We're going to map what happens to dopamine after loss or grief. We're going to show where most people get stuck. And then finally, we're going to lay out the correct sequence for dopamine to return to optimal state. Not normal. We don't want to be normal, right? We want to be optimal. And that's a big, big thing here. So welcome again. My name is Dr. Scott. If you like these videos, don't forget to like and subscribe below so you never miss an episode. Your comments, I read them all. Very interested in what you think about this new content as it's coming out. I'm going to be working on it and changing it as we go. But we're starting, and that's what we all need to do, right? Is sometimes we need to start. So let's go here. All right, so we're going to start with dopamine again, loss and grief specifically in the context today. What most people don't realize is that this driver of dopamine, right? This issue here, it's about loss. We're going to talk about specifically. It's not always dramatic loss. Sometimes it's a future you expected that never arrived, a relationship that quietly ended, an identity that no longer exists, a version of you that you're orienting towards but didn't happen, right? This is certainly things that happened in my life and have had me think about these things in various ways. So a nervous system that experiences grief, that's what it's really doing, right? Even when your mind doesn't label it that way. It may not feel like a huge loss, like a death in the family or significant trauma, which obviously really does count as well. But most of what we're talking about today is sort of those little things that really pop up and they really evolve and grow and accumulate to sort of like this pancake of things. And all of a sudden you have a huge amount of things that are causing, these kinds of issues where you feel grief, you feel loss, and you don't even know it. So when that loss happens, something subtle changes. The system stops trusting the future. And when the future is no longer trustworthy, well, your dopamine system withdraws not because it's broken, okay? Because its job has changed. Now let's put a map under this. Because dopamine really only makes sense if you have like a spatial orientation when it comes to loss. It's not a pleasure signal, okay? It's more like a horizon signal. Is there a future ahead of me that's worth moving towards? Think of it as a distance between now and a trusted tomorrow. When that distance exists, dopamine flows, man. Like you can see the anticipation, or even if you just have this sense of groundedness that everything is going to be okay. I have a colleague that says that happiness is the unconditional state of just accepting what is right now. And that can be difficult if you've been under loss, under strain, even that sort of pancake thing where it's not like a major thing. And then, when this sort of reward capacity, this trust in tomorrow and the trust in now goes away, your dopamine levels collapse. And this is not pathology. This is what we're going to navigate here today. Okay. Let's talk about the dopamine itself here. So let's talk about phase one here. Phase one is, a bonded kind of future where dopamine's baseline stable, effort feels meaningful, desire feels safe. Okay. Then you have loss occur, acute loss. Dopamine signaling downshifts, energy gets conserved. And so your sort of motivation narrows. Like you can only have a certain amount of capacity. Like you don't have as much capacity as you did before because this loss is happening. It's ongoing, right? And may have been that accumulation. All of a sudden you sort of hit some sort of threshold, right? Then if you acknowledge the loss and you reorient it, then like these small future signals return. Like you have like these little wins, these like willingness is there, and then that can precede excitement. So which means that like you're willing to kind of see what's next, what's over the horizon. And then your trust rebuilds. This is your next phase where you have like this re-engagement where motivation is steady, desire returns without urgency. But the problem is that people often get stuck between the acute grief side of things, and then the reorientation. Okay. And so that's where, grief is sometimes minimized, distracted away, replaced with stimulation or productivity. So you're just basically trying to distract yourself here. Okay. So the system never receives a signal that the loss has been completed and you're sort of on to the next thing. And then your dopamine, unfortunately, doesn't disappear. It waits. And what do I mean by this? Okay. So when bonding feels unsafe, like you're basically feeling loss of the future, the system adapts. There's different types of dopamine here, right? So you have what's called like a bonding dopamine and stimulation dopamine. So bonding dopamine is slow, it's deep, it's future oriented, it's sort of present in your moment now. Versus stimulation dopamine, which is fast, it's the instant hits from your phone, from like instant gratification. It's shallow, it's novelty driven. So this sort of stimulation in the sort of the stimulation dopamine avoids attachment. It avoids, actually acknowledging things. And this is like our distractibility. Okay. And the avoidance feels safer when your grief is unfinished, meaning that it's just safer to distract yourself rather than kind of deal with what you got to deal with. Right. So most advice that you find sort of skips the map entirely. It assumes that like a trusted future already exists, effortless, your effort will be rewarded. So it applies, this pressure. But dopamine itself doesn't really respond to pressure. It responds to what we call permission. So in the end, you don't fix your dopamine, your reward. Really what you do is you have to restore the map, sort of the cartography of how your physiology works. You have to acknowledge the loss, even if it's small. You have to allow the sadness to occur without urgency, even if it's a small amount, and then rebuild small, reliable futures, so like small wins along the way, and then let motivation return quietly. No hacks, no forcing, no distracting, no that distractibility dopamine, just giving you those instant hits along the way. You want to remap to the original scenario and understand if motivation feels gone, don't ask, what's wrong with my dopamine? What's wrong with my reward? Why can't I get motivated? But ask yourself this, what future did I lose that I never fully mourned? Now, again, this might be a small thing. It doesn't have to be a big one, right? Dopamine really is just there the whole time. It just has to be reoriented, okay? So you don't restore your dopamine by trying harder here, right? You have to restore it by giving it the signals that it's been waiting for, okay? And so here's a sequence. It's not a checklist, but as an order of operations, okay? First, step one. What future did I expect that didn't happen? So don't fix it, don't name it. These are unfinished chapters that keep your dopamine just not able to have that bonded sort of dopamine that we were talking about before. Okay. And this could be difficult, but it's the acknowledgement that something needs to change. Okay. This could be, you can actually, the way I thought about this and have done in the past is with meditation, taking time, being mindful, understanding that it takes time sometimes to really get an elucidation. Writing down is great too. If you have the capacity to write things down, like it can be a great way to kind of acknowledge kind of where you are. But again, you can't always get this place with thinking more. Sometimes it's about thinking less and calming down your nervous system. It's not like, why can't I focus? Why can't I do things? Why does nothing feel good anymore? It's about calming down the nervous system and doing less instead of doing more. Okay. The second step is to allow sadness without urgency. This is kind of like your safety signal. So if sadness arises, don't rush it away. It's no reframing, no optimization, just teaching the system that this feeling is not dangerous, right? So all of us feel sad some of the time. We all feel grief some of the time. And this could be really, really rough, right? Sometimes we need help. Sometimes we need other people to help us. But moving past the grief really requires these human meat suits that we wear to feel it, okay? Feeling it and getting that feeling and then allowing you to pass through it. Now, can you do this in safe spaces? That absolutely might be the case, right? You might have to do it through, therapy and counseling. There's also sometimes medications that can help you too. I send people over to get therapy and use ketamine, for example, which again, can be done in safe ways to mildly dissociate from the sadness, to allow people to move through it. Okay. So, and then step 3 is to rebuild tiny futures. This is like your horizon signal, which is, small repeatable things that you can do to sort of move past the grief and rebuild your capacity to feel reward, that dopamine system. So daily walks, a consistent creative window, reliable connections, family, putting your phone away and taking walks in nature is a great one. Meditation is one that I use all the time. And then reward when you do these kinds of things. Even these small wins, if you can tell your brain, wow, you did that today, that goes a long way to rebuilding your capacity for reward for the small things in life. I do this personally. I do this with my kids, just small little things. My daughter, for example, was biting her nails. And if she thought about biting her nails, but didn't do it, and then I told her to congratulate herself about not biting her nails, that was a big thing. It's a reward in itself. These sort of be rebuilding this tiny future without, biting your nails all the time. Again, a small example of what I'm talking about here. Step 4 is let willingness come first, meaning be open, be curious. That's dopamine re-entering the situation, and that's respecting the pace of the whole thing, right? So sometimes these things have a nature on their own that may not be the nature that we're thinking at. And so we have to give ourselves the map, understand what's possible, see all the steps in front of us, and just take it one step at a time, okay? Step 5 here is to measure the trust and not the output, meaning don't track your productivity, just be consistent. Go back to returning to what you did, the ease of it, reduce resistance. And if you feel those kinds of things, you're on the right track. And that dopaminergic system, that reward system that was dealing with loss is now coming back online. So the system doesn't need to be impressed. That's what it comes down to. It needs to feel safe enough, really, to invest again. So final reorientation here. If motivation faded, it wasn't a failure, it was an adaptation to a system that was feeling loss, even if it was small loss along the way. And so restore the sequence, those steps that I mentioned, let the map lead the way, and dopamine's going to follow. Dopamine is not a villain. It's something that we all need for reward, for motivation, for getting things done. And if you feel lack of motivation, lack of the capacity to get things done because of grief, because of loss, even if it was that kind of pancake thing, then you reach the threshold, you have to rebuild it. You have to rebuild it one step at a time. One step at a time. Acknowledgement is the key, going slowly to rebuild this, feeling it along the way, and not getting too. All of us are going to feel like this path is challenging sometimes. And I talk to my patients all about this. By rebuilding the dopamine system, you're going to rebuild the capacity. Now, there's other ways we talk about dopamine, certainly dopamine fasting and the capacity of us to maintain attention. And I'll talk about it in other videos. But this specifically was around grief, loss, and the loss of motivation related to dopaminergic signaling. So rebuild it, replenish it, and take your time. Thanks so much for listening. If you like this video, don't forget to like and subscribe. I'll catch you next time. This is Dr. Sher.